Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm doing a hypothetical kind of 2028 election prediction where just a little while ago, a few days ago now, President Trump was obviously did the White House Correspondents Dinner. He was making some jokes. He had a hat that said Trump 2028. Obviously the Constitution states the president cannot run for 3 consecutive terms, or not even consecutive, just 3 terms period. Now president's limited to 2. But I wanted to do, because he was joking around about it, a 2028 election prediction of Donald Trump versus just a generic Democratic candidate, and for how I think Trump would do if he did run for a 3rd term. Because it actually is a very interesting situation where Donald Trump is the incumbent president, so that's going to give him a lot of a leg up and a fundraising advantage over a lot of other candidates, both Democrats and Republicans. And I think automatically people will assume, well, Donald Trump, if he ran for a 3rd term, given his current approval ratings, there's no way he would win another term. I don't think it's 100% as much as a slam dunk lock as you may think. Now, throughout the video, I'll show you where I think it will ultimately end up looking like in 2028 if it was Trump versus Democrat in 2028. But I want to go through some recent polling numbers and just kind of talk about where things are looking. So first things first, President Trump's approval rating currently sits at 42.3%, disapproval 55.3% on the Decision Desk HQ's polling average. Trump is currently down about 13 points on his approval rating, which obviously negative 13 points is not a very good position to be in. Trump's honestly in a very similar situation to both Joe Biden in the at this current point in time in Biden's administration, and he's in a pretty similar spot to where he was in his first term heading into the 2018 midterms. So we saw obviously how that went, where the midterms Democrats did very well in 2018, and then in 2020, Joe Biden ends up winning the presidential election. Trump gets 232 electoral votes, Joe Biden gets 306, and Trump's approval rating I think ended up being about 2 points higher than this, where he ended up being around 44% come election day. Now, obviously, it's very important to note that political elections and polling is always very volatile. Who the candidates are always matter. What's the state of the economy? What's the state of global affairs? Obviously, is going to play a very important role. Trump, obviously right now, gas prices are very high, the Iran war situation going on. Trump would not be in a very strong position for re-election right now in 2028 if he were to allow to run for a 3rd term. Now, that being said, the topic of the video is a 2028 presidential election prediction, so where do I think it would start out? Well, first things first, we do still know a good number of states that would vote for the Democrat no matter what and would vote for President Trump no matter what. So Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii, goes without saying, would all be above 15 points. States like Colorado and New Mexico, I think would be nearing these numbers as well. Biden won it by 13.5 in 2020. New Mexico was 10.5 in 2024. Trump made a significant inroad in New Mexico, bringing it down to 6 points, but Colorado was right around 11 points. So I think given another trend of 4 years with Trump's approval ratings the way they currently are, I think we see Colorado be more than a 15-point Democratic win. We did see Illinois move towards Trump. It was about an 11-point victory for Harris in 2024 after Biden won it by 17 points. Though again, I think we'd see Illinois go above 15 points. You're going to see here that Trump is probably more likely to be in like the 2020 election mold if he ran for a 3rd term than he would be in the 2024 mold, where pretty much everything across the country broke towards Donald Trump. When you look here, only one congressional district in Nebraska's 1st shifted towards the Democrats from 2020 to 2024. We're not going to see that in a 2028 hypothetical election where Trump runs for a 3rd term. Now, from 2016 to 2024, you see here, just to even further prove the point, Colorado moved about 6 points towards the Democratic direction for Kamala Harris from 2016 to 2024, Hillary from Clinton to Harris in that. And then some other states we have to talk about as well. But first things first, we'll just go back to the 2024 map and go to the rest of the safe Democratic states. We know Washington, D.C. will end up being a safe state. Virginia, I think, is going to be right around that margin because it only voted for Harris by about 5.8%, but it did end up voting for Joe Biden by about 10.1%. We saw the Republicans get absolutely trounced in the governor election, so it may break 15%. It may be just a bit shy. I'm going to put it as likely Democrat, like a 14 to 14.5% win, but I do want that just noted as a distinction that's very close to being over 15. Maryland and Delaware would go above 15 points as well. New Jersey, after President Trump did a lot better in New Jersey in 2024, he ended up he lost the state to Joe Biden by 15.9. He lost the state to Harris by 5.9. Again, kind of like Virginia, I think it'd be right around that margin. I would put it in likely Democrat, but no doubt the Democrats would still win there. New York would go over a 15% margin of victory, as would Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Vermont in Maine's 1st Congressional District. No real surprises there. Maine at large voted about 7 points for Kamala Harris. Joe Biden won it by about 9. Another state where the Democrats would probably improve on the margins, though I don't think it would break 15% of the vote, because even though Trump's approval ratings right now are certainly unpopular, and I think Democrats and Republicans will both cede to this, President Trump is probably the best Republican in the country at driving his supporters out to vote for him. And even though Trump is very unpopular, Trump's base will still be very motivated to get out and vote for him if he was running for a 3rd term. So in a lot of these states that even the Democrats would win, Trump's voter turnout numbers would probably still be pretty high among Republicans. Now, on the flip side, obviously, Trump's approval rating among the Democrats would also be very high, as they'd be eager to get out and vote against him and prevent a Trump 3rd term. So Trump would start out, or Democrats would start out about 206th when you just do the states that are going to probably be above 10 points or more. You also have a few Democratic states that I think would probably be right around 10 points, maybe just jump above 10 points as well. We just did the state of Maine. I think you can throw New Mexico into this category as well, where Joe Biden ended up winning it, or Harris won it by 6 points. Joe Biden won it by about 10.8. I think we'd see that expand on the 10-point margin. Minnesota voted for Biden by 7 points. In 2020, it voted for Harris by only 4.2. Again, I think in this scenario, we'd see a little bit more movement towards the Democratic side, where Minnesota would be about a 10-point win. New Hampshire, I think, would be another state I would throw in this category as well. After New Hampshire was kind of shockingly close in 2024 at 2.8%. It did vote for Biden over Trump about 7.4% in 2020. I think we would see if in a Trump 3rd term, a state like New Hampshire that would maybe elect a more establishment Republican, not really a super big fan of the Trump-style Republicans, especially down ballot. I don't think it would go under really 5 points for Donald Trump in 2028 if he ran for another term. So New Hampshire, I'd throw in that category. I think that's probably it for now for the Democratic states that would definitely put above 10 points or even into that 10 to 5 category. There is still some states that could exceed 5 points for the Democrats, but Democrats, I think, would start out about 225 electoral votes. Now, Donald Trump, being the incumbent president and still very popular among Republicans, and this is going to be something that definitely angers a lot of Democrats when I say this, is we can actually look here on the Donald Trump approval rating. I think we can sort it, I do believe, by which different group, whether it's Democrats, Independents, or Republicans. Democrats, obviously, very disapproval of President Trump's job in the White House. 88% of Democrats on the DDHQ polling average disapprove of the job Trump is doing. Among independents, Trump is not doing as bad as against the Democrats, but not really great either. He's doing pretty bad at 30.8% approval, 64% disapproval. So Trump certainly is very underwater, independents as well. But Republicans, President Trump is still doing pretty solid. He's currently polling around 79.2% approve, 18.6% disapprove. It has gone down roughly about half a percentage point or so in the last week, though. So Trump is still doing very strong among Republicans, though definitely has gone down since he took office, when he was overall probably net about 84 points or so. It looks like here between 91 and 5, it's definitely gone down. But Trump would still win a lot of these states by over 15 points in the safe Republican margins. Utah, Wyoming, Idaho would all certainly be safe. Montana could potentially fall under 15 points. Trump only won it by 16.4% in 2020. He won it by about 20 points in 2024. So Montana, you could probably throw in likely Republican category, kind of similar to like Minnesota, Virginia, New Mexico, New Jersey, and New Hampshire, where it like falls just a bit under that margin. Both North and South Dakota would be safe. Nebraska at large in the 3rd district would both be safe Republican. The 1st district would almost certainly be likely Republican. I don't think we're going to see it go above 15 points again. After it voted for Trump by only 13 points in 2024, it voted 14.9 for Trump in 2020. Certainly with Trump's current approval ratings, I think we'd see this district go into the likely Republican category. I did also forget to add the 2nd district out of the Nebraska 2nd in the Omaha area. This would be a likely Democratic win as well. It voted for Kamala Harris about 4.7%. It voted for Joe Biden in 2020 by about 6.6. For Trump's 3rd term run, we'd probably see it go for the Democrats above 10 points as well. Kansas, after Trump won the state by 16 points in 2024, it voted for Trump by 14.6 in 2020. Kansas is definitely a candidate or a state that I would argue in terms of, you may have heard in sports terms before where they say a regression candidate, where like a player that's really good kind of just like falls off a little bit. Kansas is a state that I think could be a regression candidate for President Trump when you compare it to the past few elections here. From, let's see, okay, it's not working, so I'm going to refresh the page here, compare it to past elections. Here we go. From 2016 to 2024, Kansas moved about 4.5% towards the Democrats. From 2012 to 2024, in the Trump era, Kansas has moved about 5.6% towards the Democrats. So Kansas, I think, could be a state with Trump running for a third term that falls under 15 points once again, and maybe could potentially be in that category of maybe falling under like 10 or even 8%. Could be something in the cards there. Oklahoma would still be a safe Republican state. Texas, I would definitely expect a more close race between Trump and the Democrat in 2028. It was a 13.7% win for Trump in 2024. A lot of people forget 2020, Trump only won it by about 6 points, though. So I think somewhere in between, like a 9 to 10 point margin, is where Texas would probably end up in another Trump term. But I definitely don't think it'd be above 15%. Louisiana, Arkansas, and Missouri, I think would all be over 15% for Donald Trump, though. Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Indiana would all be as well. South Carolina, I think, again, would be right around that margin. Trump won about 18 points in 2024. He only won it by about 11.7 in 2020. So I think you can see South Carolina fall under that 15% margin of victory. The state of Florida may be a little more competitive. Trump won it by 3.4 in 2020. He then won it by 13 points in 2024. Again, it could be a case doing something unprecedented and being a third term in the modern political era, given Trump's approval ratings. It could probably fall under that 10-point margin and be more competitive, but I think Trump would still handle that and win that state pretty reliably. Alaska is kind of a wild card because we know the Senate race is going to be very close. We're at Mary Peltola and Dan Sullivan. It voted for Trump by 13 points in 2024. It only voted for Trump by 10 points in 2020. We could see it get really a lot more close as well. I'd still put it above 5% margin of victory, but that could be a close one as well. And then you have Maine's 2nd District, which voted for Trump by 9 points in 2024, voted for Trump by 7.4 in 2020, voted for Trump by 10 points in 2016. Definitely another regression candidate that could get more competitive, but I think we overall see it still probably go above 5 points for Trump. So Trump, I would say for sure, starts out 196. Democrats would start about 226. Then you're looking at the typical toss-up states where you have Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. And then you also have Ohio and Iowa, which are going to be very interesting states to watch for, because we've seen with the gas prices and a lot of farming issues in these two states, the Democrats are performing in the midterms a lot stronger in the early polling than they have in the last few election cycles in the Trump era. Iowa voted for Trump by 13 points, Ohio by 11. 2020, Trump won Ohio by 8, Iowa by 8. Trump won in 2016, Iowa by 9.4, and Ohio by 8. So if they're being competitive in the midterm elections, are they still going to vote for Trump by these large margins going into Trump's potential third term in 2028? It's possible Trump could still get a lot of those voters back, but there could be a good amount of voters that maybe aren't as sold on voting for Trump for a third time or even a fourth time if these things do not improve. So Iowa and Ohio, you could argue whether they should be lean Republican, which would be 5% or under, or you could argue maybe they would go into the likely Republican category of just breaking that number. For the sake of this video, I'm going to have them right around like that 5-point margin. I'm going to put it at lean Republican because I think we'd actually see in a Trump running for another term type situation here that Iowa and Ohio would probably be the most competitive they've been since that 2016 election when Trump won them for the first time. Then you go into the battleground states, and this is where the election, I think, ultimately shifts in the direction. Well, actually, I'm not going to say that because I don't want to spoil it. But Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, the 3 Rust Belt states, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. These are all the states Donald Trump won every single one of them in 2024. They gave him the presidency back. We'll refresh the page again just to show what they looked like here. Wisconsin moved from 2020 to 2024, 1.5%. Michigan moved 4.2%. Pennsylvania, 2.9%. Georgia, 2.4%. North Carolina, 1.9%. Arizona moved 6 points, and Nevada moved 5.5%. Going from 2016 to 2024, Nevada moved about 5.5%. Arizona moved about 2%. Georgia moved about 3 points to the Democratic side. North Carolina about a half point towards the Democratic side. Pennsylvania moved about 1 point towards Trump. Michigan 1.2% towards Trump. And Wisconsin moved well under 1 point towards Trump from 2016 to 2024. Now, this is the debate, though, because Donald Trump put especially the Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania on the map. He was the first Republican to win them since, I think, the 80s, where Wisconsin, since the Mitt Romney era of 2012 to the Donald Trump era in 2024, Wisconsin's moved about 8 points, Michigan 11 points, Pennsylvania 7. North Carolina, from Romney to Trump, though, has only moved about 1.2% in his direction from 2012 to 2024. But Georgia has moved towards the Democrat by about 5.5%. Nevada moved towards Trump about 10 points. Arizona's moved towards Trump about 3.5. Now, a large reason, we're going to start with the state of Nevada, that Trump won it in 2024. He won by 3.1%, was the gains he made in Clark County. It went from Biden winning it by 9.4% in 2020 to Trump winning it in 2024 by 2.6%. And this is the debate for 2028, is can the Republicans keep the gains they made in Clark County, or with them as the incumbents and the approval ratings not being strong for Trump, gas prices being high, unemployment being an issue, the state of the economy, can Republicans hold those gains they made in Clark County, or will they flip back? That would ultimately be the question. I think Donald Trump, even though I don't think he has the likeliest chance of winning a third term, I think he would still narrowly hold on to the state of Nevada. But certainly I could definitely understand the argument for Nevada flipping to the Democrats as well. Arizona is kind of in that similar mold where it voted for Donald Trump by 5.5% in 2024, and Maricopa County was a large reason why. It voted for Trump by 3.5%. Now in 2020, Joe Biden won it by 2.2%, but again, you have to remember, Biden only won the state by 0.3% in 2020, even after those gains. So even though, again, Trump would be running for an unprecedented third term, I would still put Arizona in the tilt Republican category of a 1-point victory or under, because I kind of want to see it again before we can say for sure that Arizona is going to flip back for the Democrats, even in this scenario. This is where things start to kind of pick away for the Democrats, though, because at this current point in time, the Democrats had not flipped a 2024 Trump state yet. I think that would change, though, with the state of Georgia, where Georgia voted for Donald Trump by 2.2% in 2024. It voted for Biden by 0.24% in 2020. So actually, Georgia voted even more narrow for Biden in 2020 than Arizona did. But when you look again at the shifts of the, I'll have to refresh the page again, sorry, from Georgia from 2020 to 2024, moving about 2.4%, but in the Trump era, moving about 2.9% towards Harris to Trump. 2012, about 5.5%. Georgia's a state that's been trending in the Democratic direction really all of the Trump era, and if Trump ran for another term as the president, given his current approval ratings, I think we'd see the Democrats ultimately eke out a very narrow victory in the state of Georgia. The question, would it expand on 1% of the vote? Still TBD, because Trump would definitely max out a lot of voter turnout in the rural areas, but I think we'd see the Democrats win the state of Georgia by at least 1% of the vote, maybe like 0.8, 0.9, but I think this could be one of the first elections where the Democrats win Georgia back, and I think the growth around the areas we always talk about in the Georgia election, so I don't want to sound like a broken record, but Fulton County, you have DeKalb County, Gwinnett County, Cobb, Douglas, these areas are just exploding in population and voting numbers. These are the areas that would flip Georgia, that did in 2020, and I think in this election would do the same thing in the state. Now, North Carolina is kind of a newly, I would say, emerging one, because North Carolina has been very close for a while. It voted for Trump by 3.2% in 2024. It voted for Trump by 1.3% in 2020. President Obama was the last Democrat to win it by 0.33% in 2008. But we also know North Carolina is kind of tricky because it is very competitive. It's always been very competitive. And Nevada and Arizona are right around similar categories to voting for Trump. North Carolina is in that same mold. You could really argue with the population growth around Charlotte, around I think it's Greensboro and Wilmington, North Carolina. You could argue these areas in a third Trump term run here could be enough for the Democrats to flip the 16 electoral votes and be a very big blow for Donald Trump in this state. And I definitely think it could happen in kind of the same way that in 2020, Georgia kind of shocked everybody by being a state that voted for the Democrats instead of Donald Trump when no one really expected it. I think North Carolina could play in that role as well. Now, I think Trump certainly could hold on and win it, kind of like he did in Nevada and in Arizona. And if that were to happen, Trump would get up to roughly about, 252 electoral votes. But I think North Carolina kind of fits that same mold as Georgia in the scenario where it sort of shocks and flips. Now we head to the Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. At this current point in time, the Democrat is 258, Trump is 236. And these are the states, ultimately, that have defined the Trump era presidential-wise. These three battleground states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, for a while in the 2016 campaign, they were the blue Democratic wall of Hillary Clinton, that they were not going to be won by Donald Trump no matter what, and essentially locked out any chance of Trump winning. And then we obviously know how the story goes. In 2016, Donald Trump wins all three. 2020, very close election, but Joe Biden wins all three of them back to the Democratic side, all very narrowly. 2024, what happens? Donald Trump wins all three of them very, very narrowly. So what would this be for a Trump third term? This is where the things are ultimately settled here. Because you know the Democrats would not ignore these states. These are very important states for them. This could lock out Donald Trump from serving a third unprecedented term. Trump also knows he can't get another term without winning these three states, and it becomes essentially the battleground of all battlegrounds in these places. What do we know? Well, based on the latest numbers from 2024, where Trump was Michigan was Trump plus 1.4, Pennsylvania 1.7, Wisconsin 0.86. Technically, Wisconsin is the most Democratic of the three based on the 2024 overall results in those states. We also know when you compare it to the past elections, Wisconsin moved the least of these three. Wisconsin moved 1.5% towards Trump, Michigan moved towards Trump by 4.2%, and Pennsylvania by about 3%. So based on those numbers, you could argue that Wisconsin would be the easiest state for the Democrats to flip, as it was the smallest shift towards Trump. And I think ultimately we would see that happen. Now, I still think it would be very close, but I think we'd see the Democrat win Wisconsin probably by around like 2% or something like that, 2.5%. Wisconsin would go and lean Democrat. Now, Michigan and Pennsylvania would be more tricky because Michigan, especially, it moved towards Trump by 4.2% from 2020 to 2024 and 1.2% for Trump from 2016 to 2024. It's a state that voted for Trump by 1.4% in 2024, but it voted for Biden by 2.8% in 2020, which ended up being the largest margin of victory of the three battleground states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, for Biden in 2020. So even though Michigan did vote for Trump by the second largest amount in 2024, I think it could be another state that in the unprecedented Trump era would shift back and vote for the Democrat by that same about 2.5 to 3 point margin, maybe even 3.5%, and it would give the Democrats over 270 electoral votes at 283. And then you have Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania Republicans in the last 10 years have made a lot of ground up in the state of Pennsylvania. Donald Trump won the state by 1.7% in 2024. We saw Joe Biden win it by 1.2% in 2020, and Trump won it in 2016 by 0.72. Pennsylvania politics have been forever changed by Donald Trump, and without a doubt, depending on which Democrat is nominated, could impact whether Trump would be able to win this state or not. Obviously, if it was Josh Shapiro versus Donald Trump, Josh Shapiro, I think, would win the state by more than 5%. If it's a Democrat like Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom, I think it would be very, very close. And we could see a situation where maybe they win it by under 1 point. Maybe Trump could win it by under 1 point. Really, Pennsylvania plays a very important role as well. But I think it kind of votes in the same mold of Wisconsin and Michigan, where Pennsylvania would go about 1.5% for the Democrat, and all three continue to vote in the same way. So based on if Trump ran for a third term, which again, I can't stress this enough, based on the Constitution, he's not legally allowed to do. And when he says he's running for a third term in 2028, he is joking. He's not actually running for a third term. But if he were legally allowed to run for a third term, how do I think it would play out? I think the Democrats would get about 302 electoral votes. Trump would get about 236, and a number that's pretty familiar to the 306 to 232 results of the Trump and Biden elections. But Democrats, I think, would hold on or flip back Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and flip North Carolina and Georgia, while Trump narrowly holds on to Nevada and Arizona. And my reasoning being on this is, sure, if you're a Republican, you're going to say, no, Donald Trump, like among Republicans, is very popular. He won in 2024, and he should do that again in 2028. And then if you're a Democrat, you'll say, President Trump is super unpopular right now. How would anyone get out and vote for him? Democrats should win every single state if Trump ran for a third term. The simple reality is, though, a lot of voters obviously are very split, very divided on national politics in the United States. And a lot of them that voted for Trump in 2024 would come out and do it again. A lot of them that voted against Trump in 2024 would come out and do it again. The main difference would be the candidates that were in the middle that voted Trump in 16, Biden in 20, Trump in 2024. I think a good number of them would shift back to the Democrats in 2028. And that's why we see a little bit more of a competitive, divided electoral map, where I think Trump would ultimately lose the election, but I think the Democrats would be able to win it, not by like an outstanding, overwhelming majority like Obama's 365 to McCain's, 191. I don't think it'd be anything like that, because I think elections are just too competitive and polarized in this era. But I do think the Democrats would have enough, given how Trump's second term is currently going, that they would win a election against Trump for a third term if Trump were trying to run for it in 2028. And you could certainly argue that Nevada and Arizona should flip towards the Democrats and away from Trump. And just with the hypothetical, if they were to do so, it would put the Democrats at 319, Trump would be at 219. I think the electoral map probably ends there. You can maybe try and argue Iowa or Ohio, but I don't think they're on the same level in terms of competitiveness as Nevada and Arizona are. So I would still put these states for Trump right now, but certainly if you say they should flip, I think you're in the right ballpark for sure. But yeah, I think this is kind of what a Trump third term election for 2028 would look like. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are, because I know this is definitely a interesting topic. It's definitely probably a very sensitive topic among whether you feel about President Trump, whether you like him or dislike him. But I think this is an interesting scenario of what it could look like if Trump was allowed to run. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. For now, though, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in a future video. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, I really appreciate it if you could hit like and hit subscribe as well. It would really help me and my channel out a whole lot if you could do that for me. You can see in the circle on the top left the subscribe here button to subscribe to the channel. On the right, there are going to be two video pop-ups for you. My latest video will be on the top, and a recommended playlist by myself will be on the bottom as well. In the bottom left of the screen, you'll see my channel name, Anthony's Election Center, which you are currently watching. On my Facebook, Anthony.ElectionCenter is also there. And if you want to reach out to me on email, anthpredicts@gmail.com is my email. Feel free to pause the video if you need to. If you want to look for any of these, obviously in more time, please feel free. But for now, though, that is it. I really thank you all for watching and hope to see you in a future video.